What's up? We meet again.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you. Yeah, the last time we hooked up was in 21 when we were like figuring the pandemic out. So I've always really had an itch to get in touch with everybody since that time period with albums and live shows. It's just so nice to see the other side.
Great, great. Where are you coming from today?
I'm in Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, that's right. Great. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All
Where are you
right.
located?
South of Boston, like 80 miles, southern
Okay.
coast of Rhode Island.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm a tech guy. I do technology for a school district, and I've always been in tech. So what you
Okay,
got
great.
going on behind you there is pretty alluring. There's some old school tech going down.
This is my studio. You're seeing a picture, actually, it's the opposite, so you're seeing I'm facing those speakers right now. But in
Oh,
any case, yeah, it's got, I mean, if you want to look at it, it's like over to this side here. This is a Drummer 1960 stereo
yeah,
tube mic pre, and it's an old 1680 hard disk recorder, a patch bay. Down here is actually an ADAT, of course, cassette player, DAT machines, and, two monitors, my speakers. I do all my mixing here, and I editing.
I love it.
Yeah,
That's great. Well, man, I have really, really enjoyed Brazilia Live at the Pump House. I've had it on the show, so it's
great.
wonderful to catch up with you about it. So, as I kind of established, we talked in 21 during
Mhm.
the pandemic. Now that we're out, how did you ultimately make it through that time period, and how has it influenced you as a musician these days?
Oh boy, pandemic till now. Well, let's see. Well, being at Berkeley, I made it through the pandemic, and then we went back to school teaching, right? So that part was there, and um, and then in the meantime, uh, I was actually fortunate that right near me, a venue started to kind of emerge, and I've been kind of the artistic director, you might say, there for the last 8 years, maybe. It was through the pandemic, and that's where the record was recorded. The album was recorded at the Pump House. Great little venue there, right near where I live, and so basically, finished teaching. Now I put this record out. This was recorded almost a year ago, and did a live video too. I don't know if you saw the video, but
Yeah.
yeah, the video is yeah. I don't know if you've ever actually seen. You've probably seen Scary Pockets, that series on YouTube where there's one camera in the studio, these guys in LA, and they bring in guests like Larry Goldings and Joe Lovano, and they do some tunes, and they just have one guy walking around with a 4K camera on a Steadicam. Well, this person I know has a 4K camera. I said, "Come on, why don't you do that at our show?" So that's what we're seeing, and of course we did no edits. So the live recording is like totally no edits, no messing around. The album, I did cut it down a little bit, some songs, because they were about 8 minutes, 9 minutes long. I didn't think I'd get airplay if I had all 10-minute songs. But right, so that's the whole thing there. And in the meantime, just doing a lot of playing and producing and writing and chasing this project now. I have another project too in the works. It's called the Ellington Collective, where we're doing these arrangements of Duke Ellington done by a very famous arranger, Bob Freeman. And he passed away years ago, but I was on a label in and what was it, New Mexico, called Cocopelli back in the days. And anyways, they recorded a record there, David Fathead Newman record with all these amazing arrangements of Duke Ellington. But then the album never went. Um, it's not released anymore. And Bob Friedman passed away, and he kind of let me take the music. So now I have that, and it's three horns, and we're doing really special shows with that music too, and the Brasilia thing. And I'm going to Europe in the fall to do some performing there in Italy, and yeah, it's what it is. It's a lot. It's good
Yeah.
practicing every day. I mean,
Yeah, I dig it. So the backbone to this project is Wayne Shorter. Talk to me a
right,
little bit about how this all came about, from kind of the idea to the live show to
right.
Wayne. How did that happen?
Great. Well, the Brasilia band itself actually recorded a live album many years ago in mid '90s at another venue, and it was Dan Moretti in Brasilia. In fact, an old friend of mine, Greg Abate, was a guest on that. And the bass player that's on this one, Oscar, and I have been tight for many, many years. And so we started doing some gigs, sporadically over the years. And then I've always loved Wayne Shorter. And on the gigs, I said, hey, let's try this Wayne Shorter tune as a cha-cha. Let's try this Wayne Shorter tune as mambo. Let's try, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, man, all these tunes work great in the style. And of course, Wayne passed away a couple of years ago. So it was like, for me, it was like, we should do a live album because I don't want to go in the studio and do this because the band is so, much about being live, that energy, So I said, we have a great place now. Let's do this live album. So um, we had just like one short rehearsal and went and basically played, and just hope for the best. But it was all really good. And of course, some of it was instant arranging, you might say. And it sounds like it was kind of written, but I wrote out some charts. Like the very first one, Black Nile, it's my arrangement of it. And so we kind of put it together, collaborated, and that's what happened with that. So it was almost like I wish it had come out a year ago, but then a couple other people I think did Wayne Shorter, tributes. I don't know. I've seen some major artists doing some Wayne Shorter stuff, and I'm kind of glad it waited a year because uh, there is one other album out with some Wayne tunes in Latin jazz style. Conrad Herb, what's his name? Trombone player. Anyways, I lost his name. But anyway, it's not like what we did. So we went live, and it took a long time to get through everything because we didn't do. I mean, we did one take of everything, So
Yeah.
so we
Yeah.
threw out a couple tunes at the end. Basically, we had too many tunes. So
So, someone like Wayne Shorter has obviously influenced so many people. He's been such a legendary force in jazz. Who was that for you? Was there a legend early on in your life that you played with or a luminary that really taught you that helped you along your way?
wow, that's a good question. I would say, it, you mean personally?
Yeah,
Someone
or I mean
close to
even
me?
or an influence, either way,
Okay, you're right.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember the very first. I mean, the story goes when back in the vinyl days in record shops, the story is that how did you discover music? Well, for me, I discovered one album. The first album I mean, I was always into listening to music and playing along with records. And I had a band actually when I was in high school that we played all Jethro Tull music. We had to learn it off the vinyl and just memorize the parts. And then when I first went to college, when I first went to college, I wasn't even sure I was going to be a music major. So I tried, physics, and I said, man, this is too hard, because I was really into science and stuff. So yeah, I went to the music department. But anyways, I found this album, the Oliver Nelson album, Blues in the Abstract Truth. So when I first heard that on the radio, and then I went and bought it at the local record store, it was on Impulse, the label Impulse, and I said, this is amazing. It totally changed my perception of everything because it was just amazing sounding, amazing musicians, amazing performances and improv. And then I started seeing everybody on the record, and I started digging through the catalog and finding, oh, there's a Freddie Hubbard record, and oh, here's a Eric Dolphy record, oh, here's the, and I started buying all these other records of all these other sidemen, and that's kind of how I journeyed into it. As far as like one-on-ones, this trombone player Hal Crook, who was at Berkeley for many, many years, he played with Phil Woods. He was on the Tonight Show when he was 18. He's savant kind of genius musician person. He was a guy that I connected with during that period as a mentor. And then he started a school, and I kind of went there and just dove into all that. But then later on in my life, one of my heroes was Dave Liebman. And later on in my life, we were all Dave Liebman, Ernie Watts, Stanley Turrentine, James Moody, and all these guys were on this. Were endorsing Kyle Worth saxophones, a German saxophone, and I was an endorser, and I get to like hang with them and meet them because we would go to shows and they would show up. And Nat Adderley, Cannonball's brother, had a big band in Florida, and Jimmy Heath was sick, so I subbed. And on the band, it was Jimmy Cobb was playing drums, and all these James Moody was there. It was like totally blown away by being with these people. And then, of course, Nate Adderley sat me down at the barbecue afterwards and told me the story of when they first came to New York, him and Cannonball, what happened. So those kinds of like one-on-ones with the iconic folks that were there that really generated all this music was the thing that really inspired me, and I happened to be lucky enough to be there and be with them. And then later on, I was totally influenced by him. He put a record out with Elvin. His first record with Elvin was called Genesis. And I don't know if you know that record, but it was
Yeah.
three saxes, bass, and drums. And he told me the story of how that happened, and it was, et cetera, et cetera. I transcribed that record, and then we did a Latin jazz version of it. So there's a record out called Latin Genesis that has Oscar on it, same guy that's on the Brazilia. And we went in the studio maybe, I don't know, almost 20 years ago now, 18 years ago, and recorded that all. And then we did some shows. We went to Israel and played the Red Sea Jazz Festival. And so that was basically trial by fire kind of thing, diving in with those guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of it in a sense. And right, I mean, I feel like now, back then I was looking up to them like they're old school, and now I feel like I'm old school, and people are kind of like, I'm trying to relay that feeling
Yeah.
that isn't there anymore in one sense, that you don't get virtually, you got to be in the room with these people.
Yeah.
So I try to help my students appreciate, that part of music, to that continuum, that we all need to know about.
So obviously, when you make this music, you're not doing it because you're like, this has to chart well or this has to do this. You're putting it out because of a lot of artistic forces, but this is doing well. And you did send over an email and mention that it's charting well. How does it
Yeah.
feel to be validated, to have this
Oh,
embraced?
yeah, that's great. It's really great. I mean, it was number one last week on RMR Jazz, but then it just broke Jazz Week this week and entered at number 30 something, which is really good. I mean, when you see who else is on the chart, it's pretty crowded with everybody, and it's that feels really great. I mean, it's very interesting. I put out 21 or 22 albums over the years. After something's done, if I can actually listen to it and go and not hate it, I go, man, this is something here. I think there's something here, and that's kind of how I felt about this record. It's like I listened to it, and it's like I was so close to it, even mixing it myself. It's like I think this is a really good record, and I guess other people are hearing it and going, oh, they're hearing what I'm hearing. Like there's something great there, and that's to me the validation that people are recognizing, that there's something going on there. This is just not an exercise, and it's not my music. First time in a long time, it's someone else's music, which was pretty painful to pay for the licensing of the CDs, the mechanical licenses. But with that said, I didn't know up until recently that if you put out a record, if you put out a streaming album of someone else's music, all you have to do is find out the publishing information. You do not have to pay mechanicals because creating another, you're not creating a mechanical product. It's
Yeah.
all streaming. And the publishing gets taken care of by all the streaming outlets. Like they pay the publishing to the writers, the authors. But if you press a CD, you have to pay so much per recording, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had eight tunes. It was a little expensive, but anyways.
Yeah.
And the only reason we had CDs is because my promoter, Kerry Gaffney, said that a lot of radio people still want CDs. They don't all subscribe to streaming things, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
So, what are you doing for live shows? What's coming up? We got warm months ahead of us. What's going on?
yeah. So actually, I have coming up for me personally. There's playing this weekend with a great jazz singer, Sharon Montero. Her father was Jimmy Woody, the bass player in Duke Ellington's band.
Yeah.
So we're doing a totally straight jazz thing, and the piano player was with Tony Bennett for many years, Tim Ray, and so that's Sunday. And then the following Sunday, I have a thing called my Soul Jazz Collective, where we do Hammond B3 soul jazz kind of thing with two horns. Trumpet player Christine Faustin's on that. Dave Lamina is on B3. No bass player. So that's next weekend. And then coming up, then I'm going to up to New Hampshire to play a series called Jazz on a Sunday Afternoon. That's in March. Um, and it runs up in New London, New Hampshire. It's a great series up there. And then I play in a reggae band actually, locally for the last 20 years, and they're all great guys. And the trumpet player, Kurt Ram, and I of the horn section, he's with Bruce Springsteen. He's been with Bruce for 14 years. So when he's not out, we're doing this reggae thing. It's a great band, and there are no Rastafarians in it, but the singer sounds totally authentic. They've been together for years. And then I'm doing some clinics, and then in April, let's see, I have a thing at Chan's in Woonsocket with the Brazilia band, and then it starts kicking up in May. We have like 5 shows in May up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and with the Brazilia thing, and so it's pretty busy. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So Brazilia Live at the Pump House, celebrating the music of Wayne Shorter. If anyone wants to get their hands on it to benefit you the most, how can they do that, or find out about anything else in your world?
Well, they can go to my website for that. But Facebook, I have a Facebook. It's always what's going on with me. Is up on the Facebook. And so, Joe? Let me ask you a question. So, when you said you were a tech person, like in what way? I can't remember. What's your?
I'm a technician for a school district, so I
Oh,
fix
okay,
computers and technology and all that good stuff.
okay,
So
great. So you know what's happening with tech stuff,
I
right?
try.
Yeah.
It's a hard curve, but I try to keep up.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing about technology. It's like, yeah, I use this thing called Moises now too sometimes, which is
Yeah.
a separator to teach with, and it's it's very interesting, all that. I'm trying to, one of the things I realized over the years, it's all about your ears, and I try to let students know, it's like there's no plugin that's going to make your mix, sound amazing. You have
Yeah.
to hear it. So it's very interesting being on the other side. You never realize. I mean, I don't feel like I retired from Berkeley, but not. It's funny. He says, "You retired? What are you doing?" I said, "Well, retired. What does that word mean? Retired. It's like getting a new set of tires."
That's
I
it.
said, "I'm going, man."
Going on down the road.
I'm
I
going,
love it.
man. Yeah. Anyways.
Well, as I said up front, it's so good to be able to reconvene in this time where music and live shows are happening. And again, I love the album, so it's so great to catch back up with you, Dan. I appreciate you taking a minute out today.
Right. Thanks so much for doing this, Joe. And what's happening?